Media news and some pa and a dema a tea4. Subway, yen no yebebo era and semnimu na yakoti and semnu enchemu.
I mean, you at the start of all this when you started this 4 seats vacancy matters, and you've caused this constitutional crisis. The Chief Justice has referenced. He said there's a constitutional crisis that Parliament is not sitting. The House has sat today, has adjourned indefinitely again.
Leader. Lecture them.
The Honorable Haruna Idrissu. You are live on Join UCT and other channels.
I think it's important that we recognize as a country that the 3 co-equal organs of government perform distinct and separate functions and must respect the mandate, power, and authority of the other. The matter before us may border on constitutional interpretation depending upon who invokes the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. But clearly, what is before us, given precedent, is a matter under Article 99 of the Constitution, which in my view strongly belongs to the High Court as a forum on whether or not to declare a seat vacant or not vacant. But those of you who have studied Article 97 well, you must read the text well. The text reads, a member shall vacate his seat. Simple. A member shall vacate his seat. The onus is on that member. I'm not even too sure whether it's for the speaker to declare that seat vacant. It says a member shall vacate his seat if he. And when you read the he, I have read from persons in government, even from the learned Attorney General, seeking to talk about the future. The provisions in Article 97 does not only talk about the future, it talks about the past. When it uses the word, if he was elected, it didn't say if he is elected, if he was elected. And for me, I haven't revised my constitutional law lately, and particularly the rules of interpretation as I should do. But basic, give words their ordinary common sense meaning. It is only when the ordinary common sense meaning leads to absurdity that you look for their secondary meaning. I do not see how the text in Article 97 can be compromised. More importantly, many of you will recall that when I had the rare opportunity to lead the minority, I kept warning then President Akufo-Addo and Professor Michael Kwe as Speaker that watch the president you set and watch the consequences of the president you set. This is a consequence of a president. God bless.
Speaker of Parliament for Tamale South, former minority leader Haruna Idrissu engaging the press. He makes the point that in 2020, when this issue was topical, he made it clear to President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the Speaker at the time, Aaron Michael Kwe, Professor, that their decision was not constitutional, and he still stands by it.
But none of the 4 MPs have been blocked from coming to Parliament. None of them have come in here, and they've been blocked from accessing the chamber of Parliament.
You are not listening. You are not listening. I think I'm going to have to say this for the last time, because it looks like some of you have become impervious to what is it. Listen to this. The Speaker made a ruling.
Yes.
It was unconstitutional. It was unlawful. By any account, it was illegal. The Supreme Court, contrary to the assertion by he himself and some members of the minority who keep proclaiming from high roofs and high heaven, is that the Parliament is a master of its own rules and regulations. The Supreme Court is told Bagbin at Parliament that you are not. There is an institution which is the master of the rules of Parliament, and that this is what the law is, that you cannot make the decision, the proclamation that you made. I call it proclamation because he thinks he's a king, he's whatever, he's a lord unto himself. But you made a ruling. It is not right. Supreme Court is telling you it is not right. Go back to that house. Can I not complete? I should complete. Go back there. To do what? Yes, it will be the interest of Ghanaians for the speaker to respect the ruling of the Supreme Court. Come back to this side rather than continuously adjourning.
He has not disrespected the decision.
He is disrespecting the ruling of the Supreme Court.
4 MPs
you are not listening.
Disallowed from coming in.
You are not listening.
No, when did any of the 4 MPs come in and they were asked not to come?
Do you know where they were?
Because today the second deputy speaker's aide has been in the chamber, but the second deputy speaker himself has not been inside.
You may want to take some medication. Yes, it has no point shouting when you are ignorant of the matter.
Yes, sir.
What it is this: it's not for the 4 people to simply show up. The Speaker has made a ruling barring them from coming to the Parliament. Supreme Court is reversed it. It is for the Speaker to sit up there and tell the House that his decision has been reversed, and so we
be reversed if you are not seated. Honorable, you say you are going to cite the Speaker for contempt.
That is not properly concluded. How would the Speaker reverse his decision?
Again, I'm saying that you either want to take leave of your senses or you listen to what I am saying. If you are not prepared to listen to what I'm saying and just listen to your own voices, we are not going to get anywhere. Look at the policy of cameras. Everybody is listening, but you don't seem to be listening and concentrating on what I'm saying. It is not a question of our presence in there or not. It is for the Speaker. If it is only about 100 people who are coming to the room there, minority and the majority will constitute the composition of the House in its entirety. Which never comes in there, provided that we have enough to constitute the House and then start business of the House, we should do it. So even if we had 99, which is 1/3 of what to form the quorum, it was for the Speaker to make the announcement in the House that his ruling has been stayed, has been overset. Accordingly, minority back to where you were, majority back to where you have been. That is the simplest solution that we're talking about.
You say you're going to cite him for contempt.
Yes.
When are you doing this?
Watch the space.
Watch the space. I mean, finally, the Speaker says that the majority has failed to convene the business meeting yesterday, so that they can put the business for this emergency.
I keep saying that first things first. First is for the Speaker to declare in that House the same way as Cathedral, the same way he did to make that. Well, you can keep on making that foolish statement. It doesn't take you anywhere. But what it is that it is for the Speaker to sit up there and make the pronouncement that the Supreme Court is already overset his decision, and accordingly we should come back and sit where we sit. Then the business of the House begins.
Just briefly.
Wow. So, Honorable K.T. Amon, subsequently at a pre-sitting meeting, after the Supreme Court has stayed his ruling, said to us as leadership that he has not declared the NDC as the majority. Neither has he expressed a constitutional opinion on those 4 individuals, and that what he did amounted to an opinion that he expressed on the statement by Honorable Kesil Atofosu. At the said pre-sitting meeting, I, on behalf of my colleagues, the majority, inquired from Mr. Speaker whether our friends who were seated to his right would be allowed by him to sit there, because that was not their rightful place, in view of his own admission that he had not proclaimed them as such nor declared them as such. Speaker responded that indeed sitting arrangement of Parliament was a responsibility of the Clerk to Parliament. This took me to the next step of inquiring from the Clerk whether he allowed the NDC minority to sit on our seats. He said, indeed, we had our name tags, that is the MPP majority, had their name tags at those seats that we already occupied, and that it was not he who did that.
So obviously, one was expecting, Mr. Speaker, to direct the NDC to do the right thing. He refused. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker engaged the Council of State, or perhaps let me say the Council of State held meetings with Mr. Speaker. As a majority leader and leader of government business and leader of the House, I had the opportunity to also meet with them. The understanding I had from the meeting as a sequel to the meeting they had already held with Mr. Speaker was to the effect that Mr. Speaker will direct the NDC minority to sit at their right place, which is the left of Mr. Speaker. That was the understanding I had. I subsequently had a call from the Peace Council. The Peace Council informed me that they had engaged Mr. Speaker on the issue before Parliament, and Mr. Speaker had indeed indicated to the Peace Council that he had not ruled, neither has he proclaimed the NDC minority, and that should we resume or should Parliament reconvene, the NDC minority will go back to their seats. Several other prominent Ghanaians, who for some good reasons I would not want to mention their names, who had engaged Speaker on this matter, had also reached out to us, the majority caucus, and assured us that Mr. Speaker's engagement with them resulted in he admitting that indeed there was no such ruling, which ruling would now proclaim the NDC as a so-called new majority. Now, from the horse's own mouth, granted that all these prominent people misrepresented to us, the majority, yesterday, Mr. Speaker himself, in his press conference in the afternoon, enumerated a number of things. Among them, he said he had not made a ruling. He told the whole of the country that he had not made a ruling. So, if he claims that what he did was a formal communication in response to a statement from the minority leader, then why is he supervising chaos in the House? What Mr. Speaker did today amount to supervising chaos and bringing the image of democracy to disrepute.
Yes.
The NDC minority members were all over claiming that we, the majority, did not attend a so-called business committee meeting that they called. Who are they? When did we constitute a new committee in Parliament? I chair the business committee of Parliament, and when the clerk to Parliament asked for the business committee meeting, I was very explicit that the subject matter of the recall, which was approved by Mr. Speaker, is a very matter for consideration. So there's no need to have another business committee. Business committee is to decide on the business of the House. On this occasion, you have made an application, which application has been granted, and the items that were approved were the very things to be decided on. So I directed that the order paper should be printed to reflect all those items. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker himself read the two letters, the first one and the second one that amended the first, and indicated to the whole country that indeed our deputy majority whip, the second deputy majority whip, had actually sent those letters to him. He acknowledged him as such. Clearly, the NDC is on a war path. They want confusion in this country. They want lawlessness in this country. And all these are being supervised by Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
It is sad. It is very sad. And I would want to entreat you, the media, to call them out, to call the NDC out, to call Mr. Speaker out. Because what is it? What at all is the issue? You have made a ruling which you now say is an opinion. We disagreed with you. We've gone to another forum. where by law that forum has the power to interpret the law. We respected Mr. Speaker's ruling in all of these. My first interview after his ruling was to the fact that I respect him, I disagree with him, therefore my colleagues and I were withdrawing from the chamber and will pursue the matter at the Supreme Court, which matter he was already aware was pending at the Supreme Court. And I will repeat the point I made a week ago. Mr. Speaker had assured me in the presence of the second deputy speaker, Honorable Amakwesiama, in his office, that in view of the pendency of the suit, although the NDC had filed that petition, which petition was mounted by Haruna Idrissu, he would hear them, but will wait and abide the decision of the court. I was fair enough, I was transparent enough to have engaged him as a head of this assembly, that because Haruna had raised the issue and to avoid confusion, I was going to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation. I did not go to Supreme Court in bad faith, and it wasn't the case that a matter was happening in Parliament and I ran away to the Supreme Court. I ran away from Parliament to Supreme Court to seek refuge. No, I foresaw confusion. And indeed, what Haruna Idrissu filed, why did they set it aside? Haruna Idrissu had initiated a process under Order 99 of our rules, which will require a process to be set in motion. Why did they suddenly come under Order 93, which allows for a statement, when in the history of this Parliament since 1992 did a statement metamorphose into a motion, which motion now will require a ruling? You see, Speaker is setting the country on fire. Yesterday, we were disappointed with his non-reconciliatory posture during this press conference. Indeed, we, the majority caucus, call on Mr. Speaker one more time to demonstrate statesmanship. We want Mr. Speaker to know that although we were not happy on the day he was elected, some of our colleagues perhaps has seen something good in him. It wasn't the NDC that put him there for him to do the bidding of the NDC. Perhaps people felt that he could be someone who will bring all of us together. Yes. There are things that we cannot say into the camera, but Mr. Speaker is hurting democracy. Yes. What Mr. Speaker is doing is to rehearse what the NDC is likely to do should they lose power, to bring chaos, to cause confusion. How can Mr. Speaker say that he respects the Constitution, but he will not subject himself to the dictate of the judiciary? How can you say that the judiciary is in collusion, is colliding with the president, and you mention the president as a person, as an individual? How? What Mr. Speaker is doing is in bad faith. First of all, he subjected himself to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And after losing at the Supreme Court, he turns around to attack the Supreme Court. His own lawyer, my respected senior Thaddeus Sori, in court, argued forcefully that Mr. Speaker made a ruling, and he sought to justify the so-called ruling and even challenge the jurisdiction of the court in entertaining my application. For him, the matter comes under Article 99 of the Constitution and not under Article 197. 97 G and H of the Constitution. To the NDC lawyer, to the Speaker's lawyer, who had received firm instructions from the Speaker, the position of the Speaker was home and dry, was on all fours right, and that Mr. Speaker had ruled, and that those members could not come to Parliament. Again, he had emphasized that the right forum was the High Court. Yes. All these points canvassed by Mr. Speaker's lawyer were overruled. The matter was heard in the full glare of the public. There was a live broadcast of the Supreme Court proceedings of that day. The ruling of